Hi, and welcome to the Grind Academy podcast. My name is Rob Patterson, and I'm a former CEO who traded the comfort of that life in to become an entrepreneur. The Grind Academy podcast has one main purpose: to be a platform for sharing experiences and practical life skills not taught at school. Growing up, my parents chose to serve their lives as youth missionaries. This meant relocating several times and having to repeatedly find my place in new towns. I often faced difficult situations at home from troubled youths, and I struggled to fit in at new schools. My academic grades suffered, and despite securing a place at hotel school, I struggled to focus and eventually dropped out. Still, I made it to a high-profile CEO role for one of Great Britain's largest hotel chains, and today I own several successful businesses. It was practical life skills, big dreams, and hard grind that guided me on my journey. That's why each week I'm introducing some of the most inspiring and talented minds from sport, business, literature, and science. I want to share their stories as practical life lessons you can learn from and apply to your own personal situation. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Now let's meet today's special guest. In episode 9, I'm joined by high-performance coach Fayth Woodward. Fayth recently graduated with a master's in positive psychology. I'd seen Fayth on LinkedIn and was drawn to the topics she spoke about. Topics of the mind, which is such a powerful tool available to us. Most people work hard physically. We spend 8 hours a day working. But how many hours do we invest in using our mind and thinking through situations? And I mean thinking for a better future, thinking about the life you want for yourself, thinking about how to turn your biggest dreams and desires into goals, turning your goals into actionable plans, turning your plans into reality, and living your desired life. This is what Fayth has spent years studying and now specializes in with business leaders. Fayth runs programs targeted at CEOs and business owners who want to achieve the highest results. I'm always fascinated by how people arrive at their current situations, so we delve into Fayth's background as a national champion and an all-American wrestler, and also what led her to the field of study she chose to take. We talk about her 9-month program, which starts this week actually, and how that establishes a foundation for professional excellence. I really enjoyed the chat with Fayth, and I hope you do too. So without further ado, let's meet Fayth. Fayth, welcome to the Grind Academy, and thanks for joining me on the show.
Yeah, Rob, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show. I've listened to a few of your shows, and I'm just really excited for what we get to discuss today.
Yeah, me too. This is the direction I really want to go with the podcast, actually. So I'm really excited to have you on. I see it as going forward. I see it as a tool that can be used as for things that are not taught at school, things that are life practical skills. And I'm really excited to talk to you about some of that. But before we jump into that, I'm really interested to hear about your journey to becoming a high performance coach and a bit about your background. So can we start there? A little bit about you got a really cool athletic background.
Yeah, the whole journey to becoming a high performance coach is quite a long one, so I'll try to summarize it. But basically, I've been an athlete my entire life. My parents were always big on doing athletics when you're in school. And I actually started out in gymnastics, doing competitive gymnastics for about 10 to 12 years. And that was actually where I got my first job of being a coach. And I coached gymnastics from freshman to senior year. Senior year, I started women's wrestling. And my goal with women's wrestling was to go into the military. My recruiter at the time was a wrestler, and I literally just said, why not? I'll just do wrestling. I don't have much combat training. I've been a gymnast my whole life, so it would probably be good to learn some combat stuff. And then I just did really well with it. My first tournament, I got 4th place at, and I was supposed to actually sign the papers to go into the military that week. And my coach was like, no, don't do it. I can get you a scholarship to go to college. College was not in my mind. I was graduating in about 3 months' time, and I was like, I've never even thought of going to college. I didn't apply myself much throughout high school. And then once I started wrestling, that's where my performance really took off. I became very passionate about it. very driven, very motivated. I did not have much skill in it whatsoever, but I had a really great coach and a really great family support system that taught me how to set goals, taught me how to achieve those goals, taught me a lot of mindset training to just keep me focused in, have a champion mindset, and focus on myself to build a champion. Ended up going to college for wrestling, went to a community college first, and then transferred to a university in Georgia, or a college in Georgia. And I wrestled there for about a year and a half, got my bachelor's in business administration, graduated, and it was COVID. So that was quite a year, as we can all understand. I was working at a restaurant at a time as a manager there. Got a call to coach at a university in Atlanta and for women's wrestling, where I also got my master's in positive psychology with a focus in life coaching. I was drawn to high performance coaching because I really do believe that a lot of things from athletics, when it comes to mindset, sports psychology, applying just a really strong mindset, can be transferred over into the business aspect of having that resiliency and just having a really great mindset showing up and doing your work.
Yeah, it's sports, such a fantastic analogy for business and life, really. What you mentioned about having a champion mindset. What is a champion mindset for you?
So a champion mindset for me has really a foundation of resiliency. So many things come our way, like just take athletics out of it. Our entire life is really spent having setbacks and then achievements. Like you achieve something, there's a setback. You achieve something, there's a setback. It's like a repetitive loop, really. And for people who don't have resilience, don't know how to overcome and strive through adversity, they get stuck. They don't know how to overcome and look to the next step. And really, that's the foundation for me for a champion mindset is resiliency. And then also incorporating in consistency, focusing on your character, and really having sort of a higher purpose. And that brings in spirituality. Not everybody is religious, so I do like to say spiritual more, because I think that I personally believe that having a higher being, believing in a higher being, higher purpose, something like that is what's going to take you to the next level in your performance. And so really that consistency, building your character and having resilience is what I believe a champion mindset is about.
It's interesting that you mentioned the higher purpose, and we'll come back to that. But the topics that you talk about there are not necessarily the things that you learn at school, because you think about what's cool, what's considered great at school, and it's the best athlete or the best looking kid, or there's grades, of course, but that is not necessarily the currency of life. The currency of life is more about resilience and consistency, and we often see it's not the best looking or the fastest kid at school who goes on to be the most successful. It's the one who just keeps going. Where did that come from for you?
That is quite a good question. For me, as I said, I did gymnastics growing up. I also did track and field. I was never really passionate about those things. I never really had a drive. I never really had motivation. Didn't really know what my purpose was. I mean, I was in high school. Who really knows their purpose at 16 years old? Even now, I don't necessarily know my purpose, but I didn't want to do anything. And for me, wrestling or the military at the time was that easy way out. And then I started wrestling and realized that, wow, I love this. I'm able to, I liked failing at wrestling. I didn't mind losing so much, because for me, being a very new wrestler at the time, that was the only way I could grow. That was the only way I could move forward, was by failing. And having those setbacks, having those failures were like what drove me to do better, what drove me to become a champion in that aspect. Also, I'm all about having a support system. I have a very supportive family and friends that also kind of instilled a lot of drive and motivation. My dad was a wrestler, so he was super into it also.
Yeah, so you got lots of, I mean, that's a holistic performance is a pretty important factor as well. You can be great at one thing, but if all aspects of your life are not in tune, it can often it can lead to a lacking in one area that impacts your performance. Do you find that as well? Is that something that you coach?
Definitely. I focus a lot on the balance aspect. I believe that if we are overly engaged in one aspect of our life, something else is going to be lacking. Something else is going to be missing. I have to put myself in check quite a bit because just with starting this new program, the business being fairly new, I mean, I want to invest all of my being into it, but I'm also in a relationship. I also have me time I need to think about. I also have my personal journey and my family and my friends to be engaged with as well, because if I lose all of those things and only gain my business, I haven't really gained anything at all. I've really just maybe gained some money, which for me, for some people it is everything, but for me, it's not everything. For me, it's having that balance. And I notice so much when clients come to me is that one of the biggest struggles, especially for higher performing executives, business owners, those who are already at this successful stage in life, a big thing they all lack is balance. They want to be able to have more time for themselves and more time for their family because they're missing out on life, basically. They're missing out on experiences. And I know there is a way to round it out, to create balance in all aspects. And I think it's extremely important for one, not just ourselves, but for leaders. I mean, how can you expect to show up for others, show up for your followers if you struggle to show up for yourself as well?
So what if someone's listening and hearing this and thinking, you know what, I'm missing a little bit of balance in my life and that's something that I can relate to. What are some things that you would be coaching to show up for yourself?
It's interesting. I actually just did an Instagram live on like 5 tips to create more balance in your life. I guess 2 of the biggest ones for me that I would have taken away from that to share with whoever's listening is one, to just assess where your life is at right now. Where are you spending most of your time? Where are you investing your time into? And then also what's lacking. For everybody, it's different. Some people want to have more work and have a lot of family. For others, it's the opposite. They have too much work and they want more time for family. So everybody is different in that aspect. But the second thing I would say is to start really writing stuff down. Write down your days as much as you can, whatever works for you, whether it's 2 sentences or a whole page of writing, to look back on and say, okay, this is what I did with my day 2 weeks ago. Where have I came from? How do I assess that? Can I see that I'm improving? Am I getting towards what I want to achieve? You can't really measure anything, especially with like self-improvement stuff, something that's not very tangible, unless you have something to look back at and gear. So if someone's not keen on hiring a coach, those are 2 of the biggest things. 1, assess yourself in your life. And then 2, write it down, journal about it, see where you were at months ago, weeks ago, days ago.
So talking about journaling and writing down your experiences and capturing those experiences, coming back to your wrestling days, because you've been quite modest, you went very far in the wrestling field, and I want to ask, how did you use journaling, or did you use journaling yourself to learn in your craft of wrestling?
Yeah, so I actually had like a wrestling journal specifically, and I even ended up using it for coaching as well, just to learn. But I would write down a lot of skills that we learned at the end of the day, as well as where I was at mentally. Did I go into practice with a positive mindset? Did I go into practice with school is awful today? didn't get any sleep, have so much homework, have tests to do, I would write down where my mindset was at, because then when I would go into a tournament, for example, I would have more resilience to what I'm feeling that day. I mean, with wrestling specifically, you can beat yourself before you even step on the mat. Just mentally towards yourself, or seeing who you're going up against. I mean, if they're a very strong competitor and they look very strong, of course, somebody who doesn't feel as strong mentally or physically is going to be like, I don't know if I'm going to win this one. And right as soon as you think that, right as soon as that switch turns on, it's really tough to come back from that. And for me, being able to look at my journal and look at my mindsets and seeing what I came up with in practices and what I accomplished throughout a practice, even with a bad mindset going into practice, I still walked out of there gaining something. And that was really influential to look at, walking away from tournaments, going into tournaments as well. So yeah, journaling for athletes is, I believe, extremely essential if you want to go to the next level.
And talking about the next level, because you're being very modest, and I really want to hear. I really want to hear your story. How far did you go with wrestling?
So my senior year, my first year wrestling, I ended up qualifying for California State. And then my freshman year, I did redshirt that year. And my sophomore year of college, I ended up becoming a national champion and an All-American at the Women's Collegiate Wrestling Association. At the time, it was WCWA. All the women's wrestling schools were thrown into one pool. So a D1 school, for example, was wrestling my community college. There was no sanctioning whatsoever. Very recently, with over 100 schools that now have women's wrestling at the college level, it is now sanctioned NCAA, NAIA, JUCO, stuff like that. But at the time, we were wrestling universities and then community colleges. And then I ended up transferring, getting recruited to wrestle at a college in Georgia. And I had placed 4th at a U23, under 23 world team qualifier. And then after that, I got diagnosed with a C5 herniation in my, C5, C6, and had to stop wrestling. Unfortunately, crushed my soul. But I really love athletics, and I transitioned into what I'd been doing a lot. It was just a lot of running. So transitioned into cross country and track and field just to keep active, keep going, keep achieving, because I'm an athlete at heart. So yeah, that's a bit of my accolades wrestling wise.
So right there, in terms of resiliency, you had to, I guess, face your own challenges and your own setback and keep going towards the next thing. What was it that kept you going, and what did you draw on to find the resilience to transition to cross country?
So at the time, it was really, really difficult. I mean, graduating high school, my plan before starting wrestling was to go into the military. Then I started wrestling and everything changed. I thought wrestling was my purpose, thought it was my value. I put a lot of my being into that. So whenever I was told you can no longer participate in contact sports, I just dropped. Like, nothing else mattered to me in the world except for wrestling. And I was going to college to wrestle, not wrestling to go to college. Like, I really just wanted to go to the next level Olympic wise, and my body just said, no, you're done. What really got me through that and to keep me going was just having the ability to push forward. I had to mentally tell myself, and physically as well, because my body wanted to wrestle, my mind wanted to wrestle, that's something I have to let go of and just move on. I was able to still give back because I wanted to coach. So I was helping out at a high school team with one girl who was on the wrestling team there, and she ended up qualifying for Georgia State, which was amazing because it was only her second year wrestling. I was like, hey, prodigy. But I really, really enjoy putting my body and my mind through just torture for some reason. And I don't know why, but I really like to work towards something. For example, whenever I graduated from college, it was really hard at first to get into working out again because I wasn't working towards anything. I wasn't competing for anything. I was just, I'm just an average Joe now out of college, no longer an athlete. And then recently I just started training for a half marathon, and I love it. I love like working towards something. I'm not doing it for time. I'm not doing it for any other reason except for to do something I haven't done before. And training towards that is what keeps me motivated. So I guess to answer your question with like the resiliency aspect is I constantly have to be, me personally, working towards something. There has to be something like a light at the end of the tunnel, that bit of hope that, okay, that's where I'm going. I'm moving towards that. I'm not just staying stationary by just working on whatever space I'm in. I have to be working towards something.
There's a great story about the astronauts who on Apollo 11, they had this one goal in their life to get to space, and that was their big goal in life. And when they came back to Earth, and they couldn't, a lot of them fell into depression because they'd hit their goal and they had nothing further to go for. So when you're coaching and you're talking about goals, you just mentioned goals there and moving towards something. What advice do you offer to your clients about setting goals, and how far in advance should you set them? How big should we set them?
I believe that there's long-term and there's short-term goals. And depending on your long-term goal, you're going to have to set short-term goals to get there. If somebody has a goal to lose 50 pounds in 9 months, they're going to want to set short-term goals to get there. Otherwise, 9 months is going to come along and be like, oh, I'm actually now need to lose 60 pounds. So most importantly, when it comes to goals, is writing down a time by when you want to achieve it, because you have to know when you want to get there. Otherwise, there's no point in even writing it down. So writing down the goal, but writing down a time by which you want to have that goal done. Doesn't matter if it's a month away, doesn't matter if it's a year away. Writing down a goal. And then also being flexible and open to revisit it, revise it, because that goal could change. Circumstances come up, and having that resiliency and flexibility to say, okay, maybe this isn't necessarily achievable at this moment in my life. Take COVID, for example. That literally turned some people's lives upside down. And if you don't know how to be flexible and adjust to things, you're not going to come close to achieving what you want. So write it down and write a time with it, because you really have to know when you want to do it by and how to get there. And once you have a time frame, it's a lot easier to set up those milestones and look at it, if it's a long-term goal, month by month, so that you know, okay, this is what I need to get done this month to get me there. This is what I need to get done next month to get me there. Did that answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay.
How often do you revisit your goals?
Every day.
Yeah.
I have them written down in the front of my notebook, in my journal. My journal, I have a journal prompt I try to do daily. Sometimes it happens every 2 or 3 days if I just don't have the motivation to do it that day. But I write down 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 intentions just for the day, or if I do it on a Monday going into the week, 3 goals for the day, and then sending someone just a good energy in some way, who I want to send good energy. And that has made me more focused throughout my day, helped me stay on task, because those 3 goals are basically, if I don't get these done by today, then I won't go to sleep until I do. There's goals I have for the week, of course, but I take those week goals and I know some of them can be done in a day. So I set them for my day, and sometimes they're work related. Sometimes they're just life related. Today's Valentine's Day, so I'd like to be present for my fiance later. But I also have stuff I need to get done work wise. So journaling wise, I write down my goals daily. Long-term goals wise, I have a sticky note that I look at and I read on my laptop just to have physically there.
Yeah, that's, I guess, that the power of visualization and saying, right, this is where I want to be in 3 years' time. How far out is that goal on your sticky note?
It's actually more of a present goal. It's my affirmations that I say to myself before I start my work or before I go on a call with a client, just to make sure my mindset's right going into it. My long-term goals I have in my notes with my coach. I actually have a coach. And throughout our program and our engagement, just to keep me on track. But I use my affirmation goals because some days mindset's not all there, but reading them and starting my day or starting my work with those intentions puts me back in a mindset to where, okay, I can get this stuff done. I can work this stuff done and get through it. Definitely.
You touch on a point that I find really interesting, and I've started practicing recently, which is affirmation in the morning, and it's the first thing I do when I get up now is read through my affirmations, and I believe that in I think it's 26 days or something like that it takes to create a habit, and I'm trying to work towards that habit at the moment. But what I wanted to ask you about is I've stopped looking at my phone first thing in the morning as well. So I put it on airplane mode overnight, and then in the morning when I get up, I go through the affirmation to set the mindset. So I wanted to ask you about your morning routine.
My morning routine currently is wake up, water, make my coffee. It's essential. And then I go straight into a 15 to 30 minute meditation practice. Right now, I'm currently in my final week for my mindfulness-based stress reduction certification. And so my meditations right now are geared off of the program itself. But it says to do 6 days. So on the 7th day, I'll kind of just do my own freebie, like how I want to meditate sort of thing. And so that's really what it starts with. And then I always set my work schedule. Really nothing gets in the way, no other outside life appointments or anything like that, from 8 a.m. to 12:30. And that's how it flows. I wake up around 5 a.m., do my little morning routine of water and coffee. That's a must. And then move into meditation, move into journaling, how the meditation was, the 4 things that I told you where I write down the gratitude, the intentions, the goals for the day, and then just kind of get started into work.
And what do you find the benefits of meditating to be?
Oh, there's an exhaustive list. I have just noticed, I started meditating my junior year of high school, not consistently whatsoever, more just like a quick dose of meditation to get it done with, Now having it as a consistent practice, I feel way less stress going through this program. I've forgiven people that I never even knew I had anything against. Like, I've let go of so much energy, and it's helped me. This is the one I'm doing is mindfulness based. I have so much more focus and ability to manage my time, because once I start slipping, once I start seeing that, okay, I open my phone to start scrolling through social media and looking at different people's pages, seeing what they're doing, marketing, I realize, and I can really flip the switch and realize I'm off track. Okay, I need to go back to like what I was doing and save that for another time. And I'm really able to delegate my day and my time and be mindful for when I slip up. It's not a easy thing to do, especially for people who aren't working towards a certification. That's what drove me to meditate every single day. And there's been some days throughout the program where sometimes all I can get in is like a minute of mindfulness, a minute to just stop, breathe, realize how I'm feeling, realize my surroundings, my senses, get back in, and then come back to my work, because we're all busy and things change every day sometimes.
Well, let's talk about higher purpose. I'm interested in this topic as well. And I'll start with a small analogy, which is Lewis Hamilton and the Mercedes-Benz. Now, I know I'm a big F1 fan, so I understand there are differences in the cars and difference in the setups, et cetera, and strategies. But you have two drivers consistently with the same car most of the time, but yet Lewis Hamilton consistently has beaten his competitor. And I would say Lewis Hamilton has a higher purpose to raise awareness and to raise the profile of Black people in Formula One in particular. And therefore, he has this extra power when he goes out there and this extra sort of drive to succeed in the exact same car and consistently wins. So I want to ask you a little bit about higher purpose. One, what's your purpose? And two, how does this play into high performance?
So personally for me, I am a Christian. I follow Christ and I believe in God. That for me has gotten me through a multitude of failures, pitfalls, emotional setbacks, physical setbacks, everything. I really believe you have to have your mind set on a higher purpose. I give my being, I give my business, I give my life to God in the sense of I can't really pray for success because there's somebody out there, my competitor, they're praying for the same thing. I don't know who I'm going up against whenever I step on the mat to wrestle, for example. I don't know who that person is. I don't know where their relationship with God is. Maybe they don't even believe in God and they follow another religion and they're praying to that God. I mean, everybody has who they're praying for. I just pray for whatever, I pray for wisdom. I meditate and I intentionally put my focus on wisdom and guidance because whatever the plan is, it's going to happen. And it's going to happen with work. It's going to happen with dedication. But ultimately, take my wrestling career, for example. I would have never guessed as a senior in high school that I was one, going to be a national champion, and two, 6 months later, be able to never wrestle again. That's just something nobody can really think of. And at the time then, before every match, I would pray, please let me win, but also no injuries, make sure everybody's okay. And as I grew with my wrestling career, as I've grown with my business, as I've grown with a woman, I've learned to set my intention more on just praying that whatever the will is, whatever the path is, whatever the guidance is, just provide me wisdom going towards that. Because it helps me whenever I do get set back, whenever I have my days of no motivation, no drive, I'm tired, I'm burnt out, I'm reaching out to clients, I'm putting all of this work in, and knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. There is a higher purpose. There is a reason for doing all of this. My higher purpose for the business specifically is to just serve others. I want to make sure I can provide value to people that come to me. I'm not so desperate for clients in the sense where I'll just coach anybody. I want to make sure that I can truly provide you value and serve the needs that you have. And that's a reality check I really have to put myself through sometimes and pray for, because I have people coming to me that do want help, but that's not what I'm based off of. I can give them references, resources, but I personally would be providing them nothing if I decided to coach them and couldn't actually help them. So I do have to use my spirituality to connect to that and ground myself and kind of recenter myself in the aspect of you have your purpose of serving people with your value and your services. So.
Okay, great answer. I want to ask you a little bit about your program now, because you've kind of touched on your program that's coming up and you're selective about who you think you align with to be able to coach. Can you tell us a little bit about the program?
Yeah, so I have a 9-month program called Lead to Achieve, And the program focuses on building your leadership to become an authentic leader, knowing your character strengths, knowing how to use your strengths, and evaluating yourself while also letting others evaluate you as well. It builds up to balancing your life, going through creating more empathy, being emotionally intelligent to really see what your employees, see how those around you are feeling and know how to put yourself in their shoes. And then also just figuring out your purpose, your value, your reason for ideally getting out of bed in the morning. And then it's all based around high performance. So taking those things, taking the stuff I told you about, resilience, a champion mindset, consistency, character, and developing yourself and your team with everything that you have learned in the program. The last 3 months of the program involve implementation, learning how to coach yourself and coach your team and take it and put it back into your life, into your business. Like I said, it's a 9-month program. So 6 months is spent in a group training, and it's once a week group training, as well as unlimited coaching sessions with me. There's enough work that ideally somebody could book 6 sessions in 1 week if they wanted to, but there's going to be so many other things that they're going to be doing too, that it's going to be more for check-ins, going a bit deeper beyond the level and setting the goals that you want to achieve and getting there to achieve them. And then the final 3 months, people are welcome to still show up to the group trainings if they'd like. However, it is completely customized to each client to take everything that they've learned over the past 6 months and choose what they implement into their teams and into their lives.
So you mentioned authentic leadership there. What's your definition of authentic leadership?
Being an authentic leader to me is knowing who you are and truly wanting to serve others by using your strengths and developing your strengths, then taking that knowledge and giving it to others. I think when people show up to work day to day, they kind of get lost in their organizations. They get lost in their companies and kind of forget who they are and what they bring to the table. If a leader is not bringing out their followers' strengths, key strengths that take them to success, take them where they want to go, then I don't think they're leading. I think they are just doing their job because the whole point of being a leader is to find people's strengths. And so authentically as a leader, how can you do that if you don't truly know yours? And so really developing yourself first and knowing what you are good at. And this isn't just like being really great at Excel, being really high up in a corporation, having that title. It's about really knowing your key strengths. I use the values and action assessment to go through. And it's a free assessment. Anyone can do it. But I also provide a sheet that they can use to strengthen their key strengths, strengthen and implement practices that are going to build on those strengths, improve their strengths, because they can get lost in our day-to-day life and we forget what we're really, 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 truly good at. So
it's a course of a little bit of self-discovery to understand your own authentic self and then apply that in the workplace.
Definitely. Yes. And it's the hardest thing sometimes to connect with yourself because there's a lot of things that can get packed down if it's not assessed, if it's not looked at.
Yeah, don't I know that? We spoke, of course. I left my job 6 months ago for perhaps that very reason, is starting to really take a deep dive inside and understand what's the higher purpose, what's the drive, and actually finding that it wasn't in the job that I was in. Have you ever found that with any other of your clients?
Yeah, I had one client who decided to walk away, start their own business. And that's really, really scary because they had recently got married, moved to Georgia. They had their business that they wanted to do full time was their part-time gig, and they were a manager in a company with 7 people under them, had that stability, had that flow of income, happy wife, happy life. It was all the stability, and threw it away to just live their dream, live their passion, and live their drive. And some people say, like, don't throw everything away just for passion. And that if you're willing to throw everything away for your passion and your drive, you're going to get there. If you keep that mindset of why you left and where you're going to get there. And I fully supported them along the way because, one, I was their coach, so I was going to get them there. And they are doing their business full time now, and it's bringing in the same amount that they were making at their other company. And so that took a lot of hard work, discipline, staying motivated. And there were some days where none of that was implemented. And that's where I, as a coach, had to step in and do my job and motivate and get them there, because it's not always that self-discovery of asking questions, going through the deeper realm. Some days, some people just need straight motivation, because there's a lot of setbacks, and especially in, quitting your job and starting a new business.
Yeah, it's scary. Well, it's encouraging to know that they've come out the other side of that. You mentioned before about one of the skills that you teach in the course is to coach yourself. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? If anyone's listening, how do we start to think about coaching ourselves?
There are so many resources online to ask questions. Coaching itself is very different from therapy, very different from consulting. And I'm smiling right now because we don't know the answers. Typically, we really don't, and we don't believe we do. And so, for example, being the chief executive officer at Google, I have no idea what that's like. But asking the right questions, whatever that CEO comes to me with, they have the answers. They have the solutions, but they don't know how to go deeper or what's coming up. They don't know the roadblocks. They don't know why they can't solve it. So that's really what coaching is about, asking questions to uncover everything that's getting in the way from what they want to work on. And so whenever it comes to coaching yourself, you have to be willing to ask yourself questions. If you don't feel any motivation, if you don't feel any drive, why? Why don't I feel this drive? Where is that coming from? Is this something that can be worked through? Is this something that I need to talk to somebody about? Feeling it through your senses. Do I feel no drive in my heart? Do I feel no drive in my elbow? Just really just assessing yourself through all your senses, asking yourself questions, where this is coming from, what's showing up, what's getting in the way, and having the courage to go deeper. And that's why it's done at the end of the program, because that's not something that you go straight into an engagement with, straight into a program and just say, okay, I'm going to coach myself. I'm going to dive below the surface day one. It takes a lot of time to get 6 months. It takes some time to get to those results. But once you get to those results, once you're able to coach yourself, you're going to be able to take that into your company and coach others as well. I mean, as a business owner, as an established leader, as an executive, at the moment, they are not coaches. And I don't ever expect them to be. But it is so important to have those coaching skills, because some days you have to wear the coaching hat. Some days you have to wear the manager hat. Sometimes, depending on the organization, you have to play the HR hat and assess things. You can't be a coach all the time, but having those skills and knowing the right questions to ask or the techniques to take into your organization are what's really going to drive your employees to providing the results that you're looking for.
Who would be the perfect candidate for the coaching course then? Is it just like Google CEOs, or is this something that anyone could benefit from?
This is really something anybody can benefit from. However, I am just working with owners, founders, and established leaders within organizations. Those that have a direct team of at least 4 to 6 people reporting to them. This isn't so much for general managers in the sense of it has to start from the top. it can't be something that an associate decides to start implementing in their organization. That's going to be really hard for an associate to do. It's going to be really beneficial for them. Don't get me wrong. The program would be amazing for them, but it really does have to be a top-down structure. It has to start with an established leader to then move down towards other teams to take into their groups and stuff like that.
So if someone wanted to they like what they're hearing and they want to get involved, how can they reach out to you and get involved in this?
So my website is coachedbyfayth.com. That's all of my social media platforms as well. My email is alifeofbeing@gmail.com. Can reach me on LinkedIn, Fayth Woodward. Really, any avenue will lead back to me. Within my website, there is a contact form, also a place where you can book a 15-minute discovery session. I call it a brainstorm session, and it's really to see if we can work together, to see if what I offer can benefit you and provide you value. And it's more of an assessment call, not so much a coaching call, really just to give you a visual of where you are at, where you want to go. And then also, I have a private Facebook group for business owners, founders, CEOs, established leaders to really just discuss techniques that are going to take you and your team to where you want to go. It's going to include stuff, balance aspect, how to be more balanced in your life. And it's going to be a very research-based group. I'm huge on research. I want to eventually get my PhD. Have my master's right now in positive psychology, and probably shouldn't say this, but I do like the research aspect more than coaching sometimes, because I actually like looking and seeing what really works, weaning out what doesn't work and what needs a lot more research to see if it actually does work. And so that's what the group's going to be about. Also just setting goals, holding people accountable with like-minded individuals like themselves.
Great. All right. Well, listen, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on the show. I mean, we kind of met just through LinkedIn not that long ago, and you agreed to come onto the show. So I want to say thank you so much for doing that, and also your positivity and the enthusiasm that you brought as well has been really, really pleasant. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Fayth. And if anyone's interested in getting in touch, I'm going to put that up on the site as well, on the website as well, so you'll be able to reach out to Fayth directly. Fayth, thanks
Awesome.
so much.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure getting to talk with you, answer some questions. So I look forward to where we go.
Well, some interesting perspectives offered by Fayth in this episode. What I take from it is you have to find your why in life. For Fayth, it's her Christianity, and she's following her inner instinct. When things don't go your way, like they didn't for Fayth's wrestling, you need to find a higher purpose to fall back on. It's in the tougher situations that we really need to find our why. Many people give in at that point. They haven't found their version of why that is strong enough to endure and keep going. Often people find their why at the lowest points of their life. They want to break a generational curse, or never want to be broke again, or feel such immense pain. They have to find a way to get out of that hole. Whatever it is, your why is what carries you through the winter months. But you can be sure spring will arrive, and it's in spring you can stockpile and better prepare for the winters in life. Set goals and build a plan, journal, practice gratification, and even meditate. Exercise, it's completely free. I want to say thank you to Fayth for joining the podcast today and sharing her story. A lot of this information isn't anything you'll learn in a textbook at school, and that's the point of the Grind Academy. I hope this episode was of practical benefit. If you like the podcast, let me know by posting and tagging me on Instagram, grind.equity. Thank you for listening to the Grind Academy podcast. I want to wish you a fantastic week ahead. Remember to go out there with full intention, keep grinding, and never ever give up.